Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode of our deleted scenes format. This is supplemental content which includes the ramblings or theories of Fodder Tom and Fodder Phil that didn't make the cut on our 28 Days Later episode. If this is your first episode, I'd highly recommend visiting the main episode first as there is some context that may be missed. The link to this is in the description. All of our episodes can be found on Spotify and YouTube under the name Canon Fodder Podcast. If you did enjoy this episode, please leave us a like, and to stick around, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Anyway, let's crack on with the episode. Right, do you wanna
Well, Tom, we'll get back on track here. The talent will take control. So we're going to go through 28 Days Later franchise, and obviously starting with the very first movie, which is, of course, 28 Days Later. Tom, are you prepared with a little synopsis for us so we can go through for our audience?
So as everyone knows, every week we go off IMDb. By the way, my partner loves that we call it IMDb, and that it's stuck.
It's my favourite thing.
Thanks for inventing that, Phil, and bringing that through on the podcast and making sure it was here to stay. So, 28 Days Later is a 2002 movie directed by Danny Boyle, and the synopsis for this film is 4 weeks after a mysterious, incurable virus spreads throughout the United Kingdom, a handful of survivors try to find sanctuary. Short again.
I've got a problem with that synopsis.
You've got a problem with that synopsis?
I've got a problem with that synopsis. Can you tell what it is? Any guesses?
No. Is it the 4 weeks?
Why the fuck does he say 4 weeks in his synopsis?
Why doesn't he say 28 days after?
28 days later?
Yeah, I guess that is an open goal, isn't it? What they should have done is, because IMDb has 28 days later at the top, it should just have ... after 28 days later, and ... coming into the synopsis after a mysterious virus. Plorpanning? Jesus.
4 weeks later, it doesn't have the same ring to it, does it?
No, it doesn't. But here we are.
That's a sequel. What's the sequel going to say, Tom? Is that going to say, I can't work out what 28 weeks is, like 6 months later or whatever?
I was going for 4 months later. I was like, surely it's all 4, right? But no, it won't be. It's definitely a different number. So with this, what we'll do is we'll do a bit of a background check on the film. So as I said, it came out in 2002. I'm not sure on the month that it came out, which might be quite interesting to know. Just because, as hopefully most people are aware of, 2001 was the year that 9/11 happened and the world changed, especially media. Media took a completely different change and tacked on how things were presented in film and TV. And I think this film potentially links into that. The cast. Did you know anyone from this cast, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, Cillian Murphy's quite well regarded as starring in this one.
Yeah, so this is an early film for him.
It is, yes.
And I feel like
not necessarily a breakout film for him, though, is it? I don't think. I think he maybe but
no.
certainly more of the mainstream ones.
Because he did this, and I think Danny Boyle took a bit of a liking to him because he was in Sunshine after this as well, which is another Danny Boyle film. And then I don't really remember seeing him until The Dark Knight and Batman Begins, where he was the Scarecrow. Yeah. And I think that's where his career started to really take flight again. So yeah, I think this was just kind of like a film he did, and he's quite naked in it as well, which is...
He is. We'll get to that, I'm sure.
Christopher Eccleston. So
Christopher Eccleston, yeah.
I feel like Christopher Eccleston was on his end of his 90s career, and it was around the time when he was doing Doctor Who, so I think he's a bit of a pull at this point, because obviously now he's not really in anything, is he? I remember him doing Thor: The Dark World, and when he got interviewed about it, he said, "Why are you doing this film?" He went, "I need money for my mortgage," and I was like, I can get behind that, it's fine.
Yeah.
And Naomi Harris, now another name, but I couldn't tell you anything else she's in. I would have to check. Do you know Naomi Harris?
I didn't. I recognized her from this movie, but I didn't really recognize her from anything else, truthfully. So I feel like she has got quite a familiar face and voice, so I probably wouldn't be surprised if I've seen her in a few things.
So in James Bond, the new James Bond, she's Moneypenny. She was in Rampage. She was in Moonlight. That was about it. Yeah, just like I said, it's a person I kind of recognize. She was in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, that's what I
100%
know
that is
from.
it. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what I know her of.
That's that character that was like you were like you didn't really see much of her, and then when they did the sequels, became
Yeah, was she the
quite a
one
big
that
character.
like
Yeah.
just did she speak like Creole?
Mm,
And she had the dreadlocks in. She like did all the prophecies
yes.
and stuff. That was her, wasn't it?
Yeah, she did
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, not bad.
So yeah, and then you've also got, where is he? Brendan Gleeson, who played
Brendan
Frank.
Gleeson. Yes.
Um, he was like the Ray Winston of this film, where I was like, I know you and stuff, but I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you what you're in.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's also like worth noting that like this is kind of I don't know the exact figures in front of us, but this is more of a independent movie, probably lower budget, obviously lower budget. And whenever I see those, especially British wise, I expect to see loads of like household British
Yeah,
actors that are
pretty
that are
much.
really that are really really good actors. Don't get us wrong, but of that sort of level that never kind of go up to like the big Hollywood blockbuster movies, like the sound like Cillian Murphy sort of did. But yeah, like solid. Like you say, Ray Winston he's in that Venn diagram of where Ray Winston sort of thing, isn't he?
Yeah,
Like he's
yeah.
definitely that sort of idea.
And the scientist as well. Like I can see his name here as David Schneider, but at the start of the film as a scientist, I'm like, oh, like it's that guy who like I kind of recognize, but I couldn't tell you anything he's in. So yeah, you're right. Like it is very much like let's get those actors that are just people recognize and say, oh, it's a British movie. That's all good. And I think you're right.
I
And
think
go on.
no, I was just gonna say I'm sure with David Schneider, I recognize him like off of like kids shows when I was growing up. Like he seemed to be like quite a common face to me. Like that's I don't know exactly what it was. I might not even be in kids shows. Might have just been stuff that I was watching as a kid that was not appropriate for me at all. But he definitely he definitely looked familiar. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he was in like Mission Impossible. He was one of the train engineers. Like, he was in Full Monty, the TV series. He's got a bill of things where I'm like, oh yeah, like the stuff you're in, but I couldn't tell you what you've really done. He was in Arthur
Got quite
Christmas.
a unique face as well, hasn't he? To be fair to the guy, like
Quite
quite a
rat,
unique.
quite rat like.
I mean, I didn't say that, Tom. You said that,
I said
but
that. He's a friend of the podcast. He listens all the time.
yeah,
How you doing,
loyal listener.
David? Or Dave, as your friends call you?
Or Schneidi, as we like to call him.
Nighty boy.
Schneidi.
Um, this film was 1 hour and 53. How did that end feel for you? Did you feel it was all right?
Yeah, I don't. I didn't feel like it dragged. I didn't feel dragged out. Um, I think there was a good. The pacing was good for it. I thought it felt more like a 90-minute movie, like an hour and a half, than it did like closer to 2 hours. I know that's not a lot, but sometimes when you're sitting through a bad movie, an hour and a half feels like a long time as well. But no, I thought it was a good length.
No, I agree. I didn't feel like I did with Spaceballs. Where I was like, oh my god, this is still going. Like I did feel like it did its acts really nicely in a nice sort of time. Awards. So funny that you say like it seemed like an indie film because it did get nominated for best British independent film. Danny Boyle got nominated for best director. So these aren't Oscars; these are just British Independent Film Awards. And if I remember rightly, this film seemed to like be marketed loads about its like Film 4 tie-in. I seem to remember this film like constantly being on Film 4 when Film 4 used to be its own advert, its own
Yeah,
channel.
yeah.
And I remember Danny Boyle being quite linked in heavily with that movement.
No, I agree. And anybody that's of that same sort of generation, or at least, because I don't think people watch TV anymore. I think it's, just Netflix and Phil, as I like to say.
Okay.
But I don't think people watch, obviously, terrestrial TV. I don't watch terrestrial TV anymore. My God, absolutely not. But growing up, yeah, you're right. Like, I can vividly remember Channel 4 adverts, and Film 4 adverts and Channel 4, and when Film 4 was its own TV channel only, it being like it was the staple of that advert. It was always
Yeah.
like the big red text and Cillian Murphy walking around and being like 28 days later. But yeah, no, I agree with that for sure.
Also, what I want to point out about this, so I've got the IMDb up now, and it's doing like a trailer on repeat, and it's like advertising it as being on DVD and VHS. This film was like during that time when people could just buy videos. It's mad how long VHSs like were going for. Crazy.
Mm.
Cool. Anything else you want to get in about the pedigree of this film?
No, I think we've summed it up nicely. It'd be interesting to see where we go in terms of how we think any of that impacts the story, Tom, and also how we feel it impacts some of the cinematography thrown in those buzzwords there that I know.
Like it?
I might not have a master's degree like someone, but I'm streetwise. This is where this talent comes from.
You
But no, I
got
thought you
have
some.
you already got the shirt on?
No, I don't have the shirt on yet. I've got my headset on, and then it would just be super awkward to put it over my headset. I haven't quite worked out how to do that, so
It's
we'll
fine.
save it for now. We'll save it.
So with this kind of film, this opening tells you how it started. Is that a big thing for you? Like, do you need that?
I think it's nice in a way because the movie sort of is already in like I'm going to sound so poncy here, but it's enshrouded in mystery because the title of the movie is 28 Days Later, and that just itself brings you like loads of questions like after what? Now what's happening? Like all these things. So it's kind of nice for an audience to at least start that with like, all right, cool, I've got me little bit of exposition, I know what the crack is, and now the 28 days later complete makes total sense.
Yeah.
And it also kind of helps. It's another. This is another question I've got for you. Like in terms of the genre of this movie, like it also kind of takes away. It's less. It's a lot less mystery now. It's more horror. It's more like action zombie thriller type thing because we don't have. Cillian Murphy isn't out there trying to work out what's going on in terms of like his like overall story. He doesn't need. He's not the massive hero who's gonna try and find out the whole thing, and like that's even talked about in some of the dialogue. But like he's just basically wakes up and being like, "What the fuck's going on? Like I just need to be alive here, basically." Because we as the audience don't need him to go and find out and get these
Yeah,
answers and
yeah.
stuff because we've already had that. We're in that elevated position. Um, Interesting that it's chimps. The chimps don't come back. Maybe they come back in other movies. I don't know. We'll find out. Um, but yeah, I was fine with it. It was nice. It was also nice that it didn't go on too long because I wanted to get into Killian's story, basically.
So the chimps, I've put. Does this tie it back to AIDS? Because there's a whole thing of like the first like human had sex with a monkey, and that's how AIDS came about in HIV. Like, is it kind
Right.
of linking back to that of like, oh, like this disease has happened through a plausible method?
All right. Okay. So you're drawing the comparison to like real life.
Yeah,
You're not
because
you're
I
not
think
saying you're not saying this is all a metaphor for AIDS. This movie, no.
no, no, I'm
All right.
saying
Okay.
I'm
Cool.
saying it's drawn upon like real world events to say, look, like, oh, because that's why I think it's less of a zombie movie, more of an infection movie, because
Mm,
it draws on realism of like if this
this could
happened,
happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is how it would happen, because the whole virus is like they explain it quite heavily of like it triggers like rage impulses in the brain, which like I'm no scientist. As a young kid, I was like, oh my god, this
I'm
could
I'm no
happen.
I'm no Schneider.
Yeah, as a kid, I was like, this could happen.
Yeah.
This isn't a million miles away. I don't have to suspend my disbelief because the film is like filling in gaps. Which I liked. I think it added horror to it, especially
Yeah.
like post COVID and how quickly like things can spread. I was
That's
like,
true.
Jesus, this film is like still holds up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the opening was short. I think it was really effective. I think it kind of just tells you what you need to know, and on we go.
I don't know if you picked up on it, and I'm not sure if it worked, but it was definitely trying something. I think where the camera angles were quite interesting, and the shots that were used were almost like they were trying to do something quite artsy, but not in a pretentious way. Um, did you pick up on any of that, Tom?
So I have wrote a note later on that I found the film to be quite artful. Like
Yeah.
it was very much like, um, quite. I guess beautiful's the word to use in some
Yeah,
ways. Like
yeah,
it was really well shot, and I think some of the music choices were quite deliberate to make you pensive. Is that the word? Like thoughtful.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I think
gone.
me, no, sorry, just before we get into it, maybe that starts here, and it's quite a subtle one, or maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but maybe it starts here because there's one camera angle, and it's where he says they're infected, and I think one of the guys turned around, one of the activists turned around and said, "What do you mean infected? What are we talking about?" And the the sort of shot of the activist is through the plastic cells that the chimps are in,
Okay.
and it distorts his face. If you notice, when he's moving subtly, just as he's standing and talking, the plastic's sort of warping the light, and it's sort of pulsing his face. Um, and in a normal film, I would be like, "What are they doing? Like, they need to sort themselves out. Like, that's ridiculous." But when we think about, like, it's like you said, it's artsy and it's also indie, and Danny Boyle is probably not going to be doing these things just for the sake of it. It feels like that maybe that was very intentional, and like I say, I'm not sure if it worked fully, but if you watch that scene again, and you can because it's really short, like it, it feels like a conscious effort to try and do something a little bit arty with the camera work and stuff. Um, but it did look a bit strange, but at the same time, it could have easily been, if that is an intention to do like a bit something artsy, it could have easily been interpreted as like just bad directing and like poor and low budget, which is a shame because that opening is what you want, a good opening for a movie, don't you?
Yeah,
You want
yeah.
something to draw you in, and that opening's almost like could be a totally different movie compared to the rest of
Yeah,
it, and that,
no,
yeah.
100%. And I think what's interesting as well is like this film was mostly filmed in chronological order, which a lot of films don't do. Um, so I wonder if this scene got the least amount of attention because it's almost an add-on or a glossary.
So he's working his way through the hospital, and then through the streets, and then through the city. I remember when this movie came out, I was like, well, I was. We'll let the audience guess how old I am, but I was young, and I remember like this being like a pretty big thing, like in the papers, to be like, oh, they shut down London for like a
Yeah,
day
yeah.
because of this, and like there is some pretty important scenes, and Big Ben's in there in the background, and I'm assuming that's the right time, and it's like I think I remember it being about 7, and I'm assuming it's 7 a.m. maybe,
Yeah,
probably not
yeah.
7 at night, and I'm like, fuck me, yeah, that is a pretty big deal to shut
100%.
down like London for like an afternoon or a morning or a whole day for a few shots of this movie, but like when we started with that opening scene of like, oh, this budget looks shit, like these cameras look shit, and then shortly after that, I'm like, all right, this is where the budget went then,
Yeah, yeah.
because there's loads of things here where I'm like, yeah, like it might be an independent movie, but it's still they must have thrown some serious cash dollar here to get these things to get these things off the ground. Obviously these days they just do a CGI, and that takes away a little bit, I think, from what we want here, which is like some like really people trying to do some good ass cinema. Because you could draw this, you could animate it, but would it get you the same like eerie effect? And especially when we're starting total silence and he's walking through London, like one of the busiest cities in the world. Um, but yeah, like I just thought I'd mention those things because he's like it goes from silence. Obviously, we're in London, we're not hearing anything, and that kind of builds up and builds up and builds up with the noise tom until it sort of culminates with some quite intense music. I thought when he's at that message wall.
Yeah, so I had that down as him like his panic rising. Like the music got quicker, it got louder, as if like his heartbeat was getting quicker and louder. And I thought that was a nice way to show like his emotions throughout. Again, like I did feel like this was quite an arty film, but like you said, it wasn't pretentious. Because not that it made us feel anything, but it did make us think that, oh, like this is the correct choice. For this film.
Hmm.
Did you notice the goof? There was a woman in the street.
I didn't.
Okay,
No.
there was a woman in the street.
How do you like you're saying goof, but like are we like headcanoning that to be just like a quote unquote zombie? Or
I mean, it could be. I was reading the trivia on IMDb, and it said that a woman got in the shot somehow. Like, how did you manage that? Like, it's literally a dot though. Because
I was
I went back and looked for it, and I was like, oh yeah, I can see it.
well, if you had to go back, then
Exactly. It wasn't like, oh, look at that person. Like, you can tell someone's like combed that. And what was interesting about you saying that, like it's quite impressive that they cleared out London. Like there was a bit where it's in Trafalgar Square, I think. And I said to my partner, I went, oh, like we've been there. You've had your photo taken there, and I took a moment. She went, oh yeah, I have. And I think because of how empty it was, she didn't recognize it because when we were there, it was so busy that
Yeah.
like it almost paints London in a completely different light.
Mm.
And I've said as well that, I mean, going back to our point of if you didn't have that opening, this could have been vampires. Like it could have been any monster
Yeah.
because it's daytime and there's no one
Makes more
about.
sense being vampires, really, doesn't it? Actually,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. So like, it reminds us a bit of I Am Legend. Like he's just going about during the day and there's no one about. Um, so I do wonder if that first scene, thinking back now, like was that always there? Like, did people think it was going to be a different movie?
it would also explain. I know you said it was shot in chronological order, but maybe that scene was the exception here. But it would also explain why the cameras look different and why the lighting's a bit different.
Yeah,
Maybe Danny Boy wasn't even there for that bit.
that's it. Maybe they got more confident with the movies that went on. So is this the scene where we see the message board?
Yeah, so it ends with, like I say, it starts in silence in the hospital bed, and you slowly hear the music building, 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 and like yeah, it could definitely be the metaphor for his heart rate, and it ends with like crazy music, like very intense, loud music. I think I even had to turn my speakers down a bit. At one point, I was like, Jesus Christ, my neighbour's going to kick off. And he's at the message wall looking at all these hundreds of messages left for missing people, and then it zooms in on one little kid. Not that I think that matters massively, but it zooms in on the message wall, yeah, for the final scene of that.
So there was controversy around this message board because a lot of people were reminded of the 9/11 missing message board,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy to think of because like yeah, like that time that would have been like such a big thing, but I mean
Why is that? Why is that controversial though? Like, because like obviously it's not taking the mick out of
no, but
9/11.
I
It's
think it
nothing
was like
negative
I think around
or too soon.
too soon and like I think people thought oh like you've done this for effect because you know that people are still thinking about it like it's almost like I think people
Yeah,
saw it as cheap. A bit like I think was it Spider-Man the first film they had to like take out scenes with the twin towers in
that
because
was yeah.
people were like it's too soon like you can't be reminding people of that. It was almost
There's
a
also
taboo thing, wasn't it?
there's also Lilo and Stitch. Did you know that one was completely changed because of 9/11?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, the it's been a while since I've watched Lilo and Stitch, but the ending of that is Stitch pinches the like a space alien spaceship, and
Right,
that was originally just like a
gonna crash
normal
into the
air.
twin towers, what are you gonna
No,
say?
no, that was just originally just an airplane, and it was flying through cities. But obviously, fucking
Right,
airplane flying through cities, they were like, "Whoa, we're gonna change this to a
fair.
spaceship through mountains, to make it a bit more easier, like and like less like sort of linked to the 9/11 idea." But yeah, yeah, it's crazy to think, like you mentioned at the start, and I was wondering where you were gonna go with it. Like, it is crazy to think that the impact that did have on how people consumed media and cinema, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I didn't even think about 9/11 when I was watching this. Like,
I
but
didn't. It
obviously,
was when I went through the trivia. I was like, oh yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah,
2002. Yeah, it's like it's the year after. So all this stuff coming out. Like I remember Spider Man having some issues because there was a advert
yeah,
of Spider Man trapping a helicopter between the twin towers, and that got
yeah,
pulled.
yeah,
Um. So yeah, it's crazy to think that like a lot of things were changed and altered because of that event, which is fair.
yeah. It rewrote the canon, as
Rewrote the
some might
canon.
say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this could have been in New York. In Jim's job, we find out he is a
Is he a bicycle courier or a
yeah, he's
courier?
just a courier again, normal dude. Like he's no one special. He's no main. As the kids say today, he's not like got main character energy.
No.
He's very much just like, oh, I'm Jim. I ride a bike. How'd you get that? How'd you get that gash on your head? Looks serious. That I fell off my bike. Like, you know what I mean? It's very like generic stuff. Um, and then
Here's something for you though, just random again headcanon, which we'll talk about a little bit. Ha- What evidence have we got to say, Tom, that he's telling the truth?
oh, none,
None at
absolutely
all.
none. But
Who knows?
do you not think he comes? Like, do you not think he does a good job of coming across believable? Like, I'd believe him.
Yeah, I believe him. Yeah,
I,
me too.
I believe him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do. I only think that now because of what you said about how he sort of took down that priest with precision accuracy, and you're right, he did.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, I'm a martial artist. Like I just got knocked out in the ring. Like who knows? But
No,
yeah, like I do believe him. I don't.
yeah,
It's just interesting.
I do think that was instinctively like fight or flight, and that the fight kicked in, but then straight away he runs. Like, so it's almost that when he's not thinking about it, he probably would have been a fighter, but he's ran off.
Yeah.
Which comes into it later. So then Selena or Mark, I can't remember who does it, gives him an exposition dump, which in total gives us an exposition dump for the past 28 days.
Yep.
And then they talk about like information and how information was shared and spread. I can't remember if they quote the BBC or if they just said like news stations, and that there was a lot of misinformation. Which again, I was like, wow, like that is so relevant today.
Yeah. And that's all such a blatant comment on like society, isn't it? As well, like.
Well, that's it. So they're talking about how they're getting fed information. They say, oh, like, yeah, like nothing was being said on the radio or the TV. And I'm like, wow, like, you forget how limited we were to what channels you got information from back in 2002. Because now, you know what I mean? Like, you could just Google something, you'd be like, well, this is a bit weird. I'm going to Google, see what's happening. So yeah, I found that quite interesting to almost go back in time and be like, oh, yeah, like, you had to have your neighbor tell you what was happening because, like, you missed the news or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've just seen an advert on Channel 4.
Yeah,
Like.
exactly. So I mean, I didn't like it, but I didn't hate it either. So then they get there, and there's a comment about the trolleys. It's like, oh, why is there always trolleys in like these types of places? Like, is that a southern thing? Because like that didn't land with me at all.
No, yeah. I mean, I think it's just. Is it the same idea? This is a northern thing that'll land with you. Is just like trolleys, like in fields and like in bushes and that.
Maybe,
Like, you saw a similar sort of thing.
but that's such of its time because you can't do that now because they've all got locks on them that'll
Yeah,
stop
they've got
people
those
going.
magnets that
Yeah,
stop.
could you imagine them be like, right, we're gonna barricade this with trolleys or
Yeah,
any Americans out there shopping carts is what we're talking about.
yeah, oh
Um,
yeah, sure. Well,
w-
here's a little side quest for you. I'll give you a little story. You've got the ramps, like like travelators in a lot of supermarkets now that go up to the top,
yeah.
and you've got the trolleys, and they're magnetized, so you can't just fly down the ramp at like 100 mile an hour and crash. Right? Here's how impatient I am. I just pick up the trolley. I just pick up the trolley and just walk up like some sort of like it's like caveman. Like I was with the kids and I was like I stood at the bottom and it was going like obviously it was going at like a travelator speed, which is quite slow. And I was like, here kids, I can't be bothered with this. And I just ripped it off the magnets and just started walking up to the top like strutting. I must have looked like I was absolutely raging everybody there, but I wasn't. I was just like no, like I just want to get to the top as quick as I can. Like this is inefficient. I need to get some tacos or whatever I was there for.
Maltesers
Yeah, but,
probably.
Maltesers, yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, Selena talks a lot of sense. You know, everything she says is right, but at the same time, like, what are your other options in that
Yeah.
situation? Like, stay in London, where, I mean, yeah, I can stay in London and eat Maltesers for the rest of my life, but it also hasn't rained in 11 days, and like, obviously, it will rain eventually, but it's do or die sometimes. It's fight or flight. Exactly as you said
Yeah.
right at the start. Yeah, like, what are we doing? We're staying here fighting, or are we flying and going somewhere else?
I liked as well that Frank tried to capture condensation into water and he had no idea what he was doing. Like, I love that
Yeah.
he was just trying stuff that he'd seen on TV once. Like,
I'll be all over that, mate, because I'll be
yeah.
trying that stuff as well.
Yeah, I would.
I like to think that I'd work out how to do it though, but I'd probably be like Frank and fail at
Yeah,
trying.
just on a
But
plastic sheet.
at the same time, right? Like if you go back and look at the scene, and I wasn't going to mention it, but now you brought us back to the condensation thing. I'm fucking going to. So he's got like loads of buckets. Yeah, he's got like every single bucket you can imagine. Did you see that he had some fucking like like I can't even think of the word like oh what's the word man like laundry hampers? That's it. Like with holes all in the sides.
No, I didn't.
And I was like, what are you doing, Frank? Like, I hope there's a bucket in that laundry hamper
You might have
because
just been doing laundry.
yeah. I mean, when it rains, I'm gonna do so much
Yeah,
fucking laundry over here.
exactly.
Like, it hasn't rained in 11 days, Jim. My pants stink. Who knows?
Yeah. No,
Yeah, if
fair.
you go back and look at that, you'll see some laundry hampers, and I remember seeing them because obviously you can see the holes in them, and I was like, "What are you? What's your plan here, Jim? I'll plan here, Frank." Like,
Yeah, so we have jumped because we go to the ruins before that and they camp out,
yeah,
and that's
yep,
where Jim calls Frank dad.
yep,
So I've put here that we start to really see Selena's character growth because she's starting to ease up. Like she's not as much of a bitch. She almost like laughs stuff off and becomes caring of people. And we find out she's a chemist. Like this is where we find out her backstory because she's not opened up to us at all. And it's took this long in the movie for it to start telling us like who she was before all of this. Um, and then Jim just comes across like a bad influence because like Hannah's asking for drugs, and Frank's like, no. And then he's almost like, oh, come on, Dad. How are Dad?
yeah. Let me take some drugs, Dad.
Like,
In this apocalyptic
yeah,
world.
let her have one. How are Dad? Pack it in. Um, so, and at this point, I thought, oh, like, is Jim a druggie? Because he looks like a druggie.
Does look like a druggie. But again, just talking about the father-son sort of dynamic, it's like that's very much like, oh come on, Dad, like come on,
Yeah,
like there's all those, and then it's like that's his little sister, and he's like, come on, man, it's all right, you can do one.
yeah.
Like there's you can draw those comparisons to these things.
And we see the
And
horses. What did the
see the
horses
horses.
represent? What did they represent?
I don't know. That was my best horse
I was
impression
gonna
as well.
say that's what it sounded like. I know I didn't quite understand the horses. I don't know if it was like showing there's still beauty in the world and like it's not technological or anything. I don't know if that was the pull or if it was like they're free from their like cares, and that's like what these zombies and infected are like all trying to survive against. Like they're going against like all these like stupid things that don't matter, and these horses are free. I don't know. I don't know. How did the
Who are the
horses make?
who are the horses for?
How did the horses make you feel?
Yeah.
Um,
Do you remember the My Lovely Lovely Horse song?
my lovely
And
lovely
I know,
horse.
yeah, it's Father Ted. But there's all. Do you remember the magazine?
Nah,
I love horses, best of all the animals. I love horses, they're my friends. You remember that?
I don't.
Okay, I'd watched obviously
I'm
far too much TV as a kid.
color me intrigued. I've never really seen Father Ted.
Oh, okay.
I know it's on like the list of things I need to watch because I'm sick of like being in a group and people quote it and I'm like, ha 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 ha, what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's really annoying. But I've seen loads of My Hero. I loved that when I was a kid. um, is there anything else you want to talk about that camping scene?
No, we've covered it all beautifully.
Remember enjoying it the first time, then you watched it a second time and it didn't quite hit. What was its third watch like?
The third one, well, I had to go through it no matter what, didn't I?
Yeah.
Like I didn't have the luxury of like fuck this, I'm turning it off. I've got to watch it. I haven't just lied this whole time, being like, oh yeah, I like the bit with the Maltesers, and you were like, yes, it was Maltesers. I was like, thank God, thank God. There's a kind of little like guessing all these things perfect. I mean, I couldn't turn it off, but on the third watch through, I think to be honest, and I said this right at the start of the episode that that opening scene really did. I didn't like it. Like I think they could have reshot that or done it in a better way, and it probably would have drew us in a bit more. I don't remember that scene from when I reflected on the movie originally as a kid. Obviously, it's not as we've said, it's not really massively important to any
No,
part of
it's
this.
not.
Like I didn't need to know there was monkeys. Like really, like you just tell us that that's what happened. I don't care. I care about all the other things that we've deep dived into. Um, but yeah, third, like I've probably watched it like 4 times in my life, or 3.5 when I turned it off the last time I tried to watch it. Um, and yeah, I've appreciated a lot more on this walkthrough, and also based on some of the things we've talked about, I think there's a justification there to go back and look out for some other things as well, and like
Yeah,
did some
yeah.
of the zombies talk as well that I didn't pick up on any of my watches the first 3 times.
So with that, what we're gonna do is we will rank the other films against this. Going forward. So there's only 3 films to consider. But before we do that, I guess we're not doing our next segment as we usually would. Is that right, Phil? Unless you picked up a Wilhelm scream I did not pick up.
I did not hear any zombies doing any Wilhelm screams, or infected doing any Wilhelm screams. Disappointed, Tom, but understandable.
Well,
I don't
if
think there would have been
so,
it.
I want to keep this segment in, but if you could have picked a spot where there would have been a Wilhelm scream, where would you have picked?
Right, you know what it is.
Yeah,
We've talked about it already, and I think that you like it when people are falling
yeah.
as well.
The zombie falls on the shaft, doesn't it?
Frank pushes a zombie down the shaft in the tower block, and it would have worked. It
If
would
I
have
could,
worked.
I'm gonna find that scene and I'm gonna overlay it with the Wilhelm scream.
Yeah. So Tom, we're gonna do a little feature that you've actually invented, and I've totally just stole it, but I'm gonna do it with a twist this time round. Okay, you ready?
A creature feature. I'm ready.
A creature feature, some might say. Yes, on the back of our episode of 28 Days Later. So, we have the game, Tom, that you've invented called Picture Book.
I like
And
the
I
picture
thought,
book game.
it's a good game. It's a good game. And in this game, what we do is we go through a list of movies, just a short list this time round, and I need you to tell me if this movie is an original picture or if it was originally a book and the movie's based on the book. All right.
Okay.
So this is Picture Book. This is Picture Book Zombie Edition because I've gone with
Nice.
a
Okay.
zombie franchise sort of feel for this one. All right. So some of these you'll probably heard of before. They're quite famous. Some of them are a bit more out there, and I've picked all of them because I feel that all of them are a little bit subversive of the zombie genre, a little bit like 28 Days Later that we've just done a deep dive into in our last episode. All right.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go through them. I've only got 6 for you this time. Okay. And then at the end, if you've got any thoughts on any of these movies, if you've seen any or not seen any, let me know as well. All right. So we'll start with movie number one, which is World War Z
World War Z
or
is
World War Z in Britain.
It wasn't called World War Z in Britain, was it?
Well, we say Z, don't we? Don't make me go through the alphabet.
Well,
But
no, I mean,
World War.
I would say Z, but I would never call it a ZB, a Zodby.
What?
Well, you wouldn't call it a ZB or a. Hold on.
You wouldn't call it a zombie neither.
Hold on. Alright, fucking, it's a book. I know it's a book. Like, I'm locking in book before any more memes that you've created have come up with this. I'm going book.
Yep. So World War ZZ is a book.
It would be a zombie. You wouldn't call it a zombie, would you? You'd just call it a zombie.
You took too long. You took too long to come up with that. It's too long. Second movie, I Am Legend.
I Am Legend is a book, and I've read it.
Well, wow, just flashing your expertise straight in the people's faces, aren't you?
Yeah, it was the one and only book I've read.
Well done, yeah. Third movie, Cargo.
Cargo. Is this the one with Martin Freeman? Yeah, where he's
It is.
Okay. Is it a Netflix original? As in, like, it's not a book. Sorry, it's not a book.
Is that a question or is that your answer?
No, that's my answer. My answer is
okay.
It is not a book.
You're correct. It's originally a picture. Netflix original. You were correct as well. No bonus points in this game though.
Right, fucking nine.
Fourth movie. You're on not to put any pressure on you, but you're 100% streak so far.
Okay.
Fourth movie. We've got Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
The book.
That is a book. Well done. Fifth movie. Train to Busan.
Train to Busan. Some call this the greatest zombie movie of all time. I don't think I'm one of them.
Oh, interesting.
I think this is an original movie with stolen elements from other books. So I think it's an original because I don't think there's a book based on it.
It is an original.
Okay.
You're on your final hurdle here, Tom. No pressure.
Let's go for it.
Warm Bodies.
Book.
You got all of them right, Tom.
Yeah.
6 out of 6. Well done.
I remember Warm Bodies being like a book that everyone was reading either in college or university, and I was like, you fucking freaks. Pack it in. Like, because he can, like, he gets, like, heart heartfelt touches or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought when that one came out, I remember thinking that it was the sort of Twilight of the zombie genre.
Yeah, me too.
With that thing.
Wasn't it the guy out of was it Nicholas Holt?
Yeah, it was Nicholas Holt. Yeah,
Nicholas Holt. He's doing
yeah,
all right for himself, isn't he? He's a
yeah.
bit he's a bit like Cillian Murphy in the sense that he kind of did not great choices or like good choices, but he just never picked up, and now all of a sudden he's everywhere.
Yeah, we've got a lot of time for Nicholas Holt. Big fan of the podcast as well.
Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah.
And
if
so
you
go on.
seen all of those? Happy with all those?
I've not seen Warm Bodies.
Okay.
I've seen Train to Busan. I really did enjoy Train to Busan. In fact, my mom enjoyed Train to Busan. She doesn't like horror films. She thought it was a really good film.
Mm.
I just don't know if I can commit to it being the best zombie film when you've got like Night of the Living Dead, like OG stuff. What else was there?
Cargo.
I haven't seen Cargo.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, it's always been like I've looked at it and thought, oh, I should watch that, and I just never got around to it. I think I had a choice between that and Mist, and I chose Mist, and I enjoyed Mist.
You chose poorly.
Okay, well then I'm gonna go then. I guess I've got a good
well,
film
as we've established on this podcast, it takes 2 years for us to go with people's recommendations. So let us know in 2027 what you thought of Cargo. Probably Cargo 2 out by then.
World War Z, hated it. Absolutely despised it.
World War Z gets a lot of bad press, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I just found it like Brad Pitt was just there. Like, I just feel like he brought nothing to the film other than like, guys, just follow us through all these events, please. What else was there?
There's only 2, which is I Am Legend, which I think everybody's seen by this point.
So I Am Legend, it's got 2 endings, right?
Yeah, I saw a different ending than the one everybody else saw.
What was the ending you saw? Was it the grenade one or the one?
Grenade one. Grenade one, yeah.
So what's the other ending? Because that's the ending I've seen.
Fucking hell, I watched it the other day and it's got a totally different ending. He just escapes. He just gets away.
No!
Yeah. No grenade.
The grenade ending's like class.
Yeah.
Also, like, it was one of the first times I'd seen, like, probably not the first time, but one of the first like times I remember seeing like a dog die on screen. I was like, oh, this is horrible.
Oh yeah. Also that movie had the Batman Superman poster.
Yes, it did.
Oh, that was like next level advertising shit.
That was like the internet, like in its prime when people are like, what does this mean? Like, have you seen
mental,
this?
didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what was the last film?
Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
I haven't seen that, unfortunately. It is on my list.
I've not seen that either. I knew it was a book. But I thought I might call you out because it was Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
It came out a similar time when Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter came out. I haven't seen that either.
I've seen that, and that's banging. I must say, really enjoyed that one.
I think it's you who told us it was banging. I just outright refused to believe you. I was like, no, it's not.
No, it's actually good.
Okay,
but as we've established, I love a good just tongue-in-cheek parody, ridiculous movie, and that is. I mean, the title alone gives you everything you need to know.
Well, it was that and Strippers versus Werewolves or something. There was just a well of films that came out with just weird titles.
Yeah.
So should I watch Abraham Lincoln or Cargo?
Do you want a laugh or do you want a serious movie?
No, you just whatever. Like you pick one. I'll watch it. I'll watch it in 2 years.
Well, go with Abraham Lincoln then.
Mid.
Because
I can't wait.
Cargo. I'll see you in 2028 when we're talking about it.
Yeah. No,
28 years later.
28 years later. It was a good segment. Also, this 28 years later, this can be part of the deleted scenes. Why is it not coming out 28 years later?
I know, yeah. I was thinking about that the other day. Because I was like, oh, it's 2002. And then I was like, oh, no, we're not in 2030. Never mind.
Yeah, like, all he had to do was, like, he could have made the film, right? Because it's not like the film's going to look any worse for 5 years, is it? Like, just make it, hang on to it, and then, like, put it in a time capsule and be like, 2030, New Year's Day, here you go, guys. 28 years later, I've done it. It's like, it's the ultimate marketing strategy.
Yeah, it is, you're right. It's very... There was a thing that not long ago that they've recorded a movie and they're not gonna release it for 1,000 years, or maybe it's only 100 years.
The sun would have exploded by then, hopefully.
They announced, yeah, I don't know what I can't remember anything about it. As soon as they said like, oh, we're not releasing this for 1,000 years on purpose, and I was like, well, go fuck yourselves then.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I sort of clocked out entirely. But yeah, there's like it was like an art piece You know, that's the whole point of it. But yeah,
Probably,
maybe I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe there's a social commentary on there that's only applicable in 2025, Tom. So if it got released in 2030, sorry, it wouldn't fit the same.